Good afternoon. It is the very first day of September. The year is 2022. Thank you so much for tuning in to KBC Lunchtime News. We have been following on the proceedings at the Supreme Court, and we are beginning on that point. Our court reporters are on standby to give us an update or break down the day's proceedings for us. Good afternoon, Sarafina.
Indeed, a very good afternoon, Nissy. As you've mentioned, we're coming to you live from the Milimani Law Courts, whereby we are following up on the Supreme Court sitting, whereby they're getting to hear the presidential election petition that was filed by Raila Odinga and his running mate Martha Karua, alongside the other petitioners who were consolidated to about seven petitions were consolidated and two struck out. And today being the second day, we've gotten to see a number of respondents who have been able to give their submissions represented by their lawyers. And as of this morning, we're able to see the IEBC lawyers as well as the chair of the IEBC lawyers representing or giving submissions in court. And just to take you through some of the submissions that were given today by the lawyers, one was by Professor Githu Muigai, who was the then Attorney General, who is now representing the IEBC. Key to know that is that in 2017, he was the amicus curiae in the presidential petition that was filed back then, but this time he is appearing for the IEBC. And some of the questions that emerged from his submission is that the first thing that he was able to mention or to question was that some of the lawyers who are actually in this presidential election petition are people who have been elected through the same process that are saying that is flawed, getting to mention some of the governors, including the Siaya Governor James Orengo, some of the senators, including Busia Senator Okiya Omtata, Professor Tom Ojenda. So he got just to ask them that how are you questioning that the whole electoral process was flawed? Yes, you agree to having been elected into your rightful positions of governors, senators, as well as members of parliament. The other thing that also came out was that he got to question about, or got to say about the reports written by the observers who were observing the just concluded general election, saying that they got to say that the process was one of the fairest processes ever observed in the Kenyan election since the 2010 promulgation of the 2010 constitution. The other issue that he got to talk about was about that there is no evidence in regards to allegations that have been raised by the petitioners, getting to say that some of the allegations get to even reach into the matter or position of treason, yet there is no evidence in support of this. He also pointed out the vilification that has been put upon the chair of the IEBC of the IEBC, who is Wafula Chebukati, saying that what is being pointed to him is a witch hunt, and says that now this is good that the Constitution gets to protect his tenure in office against the vilification from the petitioners. He also got to say that to just understand, to make people or the court understand about the commission and its function, and getting to point out Articles 138.3c and Article 138.10 as indicated on the functions of the commission and what is mandated of the chair of the IEBC Commission. Just concluding his submissions, he got to say that the right thing in this was that the right thing in all that happened on the 15th of August during the declaration of the presidential results was not based on the majority of commissioners, but the conscience of the people who were declaring whether what they were declaring was right or wrong. The other lawyer who we got to see, who got to come and give his submissions, was Kamau Karori, who was also in support of some of the submissions that were given by Githu Muigai, getting to expound more on the establishment of the commission under Article 250 of the Constitution, and also Article 138.3c and Article 138.10, getting to say that the allegations are put on the chair of the IEBC, saying that he styled the position of being the chair or the presidential returning officer isn't true, because this is provided for in regards to his mandate as indicated under Article 138.10 of the Constitution, which then gives him the power to declare the results found in regards to the presidential election results. They also got to take us through the 27 constituencies that were disputed, saying that they were not verified nor tallied nor declared at the National Tallying Center, getting to say that this happened, or the reason as to why this was not declared at the National Tallying Center was because of the chaos that were caused by representatives of the said Azimio la Umoja One Kenya coalition, and therefore this is what led to the 27 constituencies not being allowed or not being declared. And also getting to point out on one of the allegations whereby they were saying as of yesterday the petitioners were calling on the court to get to declare Regulation 87 of the Election Act as unconstitutional, since it is inconsistent with the Constitution. Therefore, the lawyers got to say that this does not sit well, given that these regulations have never been disputed since they were promulgated in 2017, and therefore since they were in position during the 15th of August as the results were being declared, then it will be wrong for the court to get to declare it unconstitutional just because they do not agree with the results. The other lawyer that we got to see represent or give his submissions was Eric Gumbo, representing the IEBC, who now got to delve further into Forms 34A that were being brought from the polling center to the National Tallying Center, whereby he got to explain and say all the security features that were attached into the Forms 34A, saying that it had about 8 security features, and also that the whole process that happened in regards to transmission of the forms that were being taken photos and later on transmitted to the National Tallying Center before they were verified with the physical form, saying that the whole process was 99.99 success. The success rate was 99.99%, and also got to tell the court that the transmission was encrypted. So the allegations of saying that there was a way one could download the forms, interfere with them, and then upload them was not possible, since the whole process of the RTC was encrypted. He also got to rely on affidavits by Hilda Kavongo, who is an ICT expert, and he got to say that according to the affidavits that there was no interference in regards to the system. And also they got to point out some of the affidavits that had been brought to the court by Githongo, who they got to say that the affidavits that Githongo brought to the court were actually logs of 2017, so they were not genuine, and that they had about 9 inconsistencies in regards to what was presented in court. Out of that, what they got to point out from the logs is that the serialized part of the forms or of the logs had names, and this is a thing that was being used during the 2017 general elections and not the 2022 general elections. They also got to point out that one of the evidences that was mentioned yesterday in regards to a returning officer called Asenge, saying that the returning officer was actually a returning officer during the 2017 general elections and not the 2022 general elections. He also got to mention out the affidavit by Justice Nyangai, who is one of the commissioners, the dissenting commissioners of the IEBC, saying that the logs that he represented had nothing to do with the transmission of the results of the 2022 general presidential election results, but rather these were just normal applications of how the system was running. And some of the people who were mentioned, including an officer of the IEBC called Dahir, saying Dahir was actually gazetted and therefore had access to access the system. And as it was mentioned, then it was not true that he illegally accessed the system. The other lawyer that we got to see now give an audit trial of the whole system, one of the key factors that played out in this, he got to mention some of the allegations that were put out by Raila Odinga's running mate Martha Karua, getting to say that the variances that were experienced in Kirinyaga about 25,000 votes, and say this is very wrong, and according to what they got to tally and or according to the audit trial done by the IEBC is just about 900 votes, and also getting to say that some of this could be attributed to stray votes, and also mentioning that they should take into notice that that county has about 2 prisons who are only allowed to thereby whereby just vote for the presidential position, and who also got to just go through the whole RTS system, dismantling everything that was said yesterday in regards to how interference was done by some of the officers of the IEBC as well as the Venezuelans, saying that the RTS process was very seamless. And one of the allegations that was mentioned about the conversion of the CSV to a PDF form instead of actually uploading a JPEG, a picture taken by the presiding officer, was wrong, because that is not even factual. And if he got to say that if then that's possible, they'll like to get a patent of the instrument that was used to actually download the forms, convert them from CSV into PDF, and then get to upload them. And then we also got to see that the other lawyer that representing the IBC, Abdikadir Mohammed, who was trying to just show on burden of proof, whereby he got to mention of the key things that he got to mention out of this was the interference of the DCI in the whole process of the verification and tallying, whereby he even got to point out that there was presence of ATPU, Anti-Terror Police Unit, at the National Tallying Center, just questioning why they were deployed to that particular place, and mentioning that the DCI was one of the main key impediments in this process. They were also expected to give submissions on the KPMG report, but this did not happen. However, they got now to submit or to give back 13 minutes to the court, and meaning now that they've already completed their submissions. And the next respondent that we expect now to come to the floor of the court, of the Supreme Court, to get to give submissions is William Ruto and his running mate, who is Rigathi Gachagua, when the court comes back to session at 2 p.m. So I'm going to hand you over to my colleague Ben Chumba, who is also at the premises of the Milimani Law Courts, where the Supreme Court is hearing the presidential election petition, to just take you through the scrutiny process that is going through at that particular place. I'm Serafina Robi, to you, Ben Chumba.
Mwenzangu Sarafina Robi, ukiwa upande huo wa mahakama. Ni kweli kabisa, wakati ambapo mawakili wanapojaribu kuonyesha ubabe wa kisheria katika mahakama, katika jumba la forodha, basi shughuli ya utathmini wa zile masanduku ya kupigia kura imekuwa ikiendelea, na kwa hivyo kufikia sasa tunaweza ripoti kwamba shughuli hiyo imekamilika. Shughuli hiyo iliweza kukamilika mwendo wa asubuhi saa 2, na sasa kinachoendelea ni kwamba wale maafisa ambao walikuwa wameteuliwa na mahakama ya juu basi wanaendelea kuandaa ripoti yao, na bila shaka wataweza kuwasilisha ripoti yao hapo baadaye mbele ya majaji 7 ambao wataweza kutumia ripoti hiyo kuweza kujua mbivu na mbichi, kwa sababu kumbuka katika kesi hii ambayo imewasilishwa na Raila Odinga ni kwamba kuna madai kwamba kura ambazo ziliweza kutangazwa katika maeneo ya kupigia kura sio sawia na zile kura ambazo ziliweza kujumuishwa katika ile fomu 34A. Kwa hivyo wale maajenti wa mahakama wamekuwa wakiendeleza shughuli hiyo kuanzia jana, na hapo jana walianza shughuli yenyewe mwendo wa saa 4, saa 5 mchana, na hadi kufikia saa 3 usiku tu walikuwa wameweza tu kukamilisha sanduku kama 9 peke yake. Na hivyo basi, kulingana na msajili wa mahakama ya upeo, anasema kwamba walivyoona hivyo basi iliwabidi kujigawa katika vikundi 4, na hivyo basi wakafanya kazi usiku mzima, na kufikia asubuhi leo walikuwa wamekamilisha ile shughuli. Labda tu mtazamaji, ni kueleza jinsi mambo yalivyokuwa, ni kwamba waliweza kufungua takriban masanduku ya kura 41, na wakati ambapo walikuwa wanafungua masanduku hayo, wale maafisa ama mawakili ambao wanawakilisha mwenyekiti wa IEBC Wafula Chebukati, makamishna wa IEBC, mawakili pia wanawakilisha Raila Odinga pamoja na William Ruto, pia wao wamekuwa hapa wakihakikisha kwamba kweli yale mambo ambayo yanaendelea ni sawa ama yanakwenda kulingana na vile wanatarajia. Labda tu nikueleze kwa kifupi ni kwamba katika ile ripoti ambayo itakuwa inawasilishwa katika mbele ya majaji 7, ni kwamba ripoti yenyewe itakuwa katika vitengo 3. Kumbuka kwamba kitengo cha kwanza ambacho kilikuwa kimepewa jukumu la kufanya utathmini ni kile kitengo ambacho kilikuwa kimepewa shughuli ya kufanya utathmini wa teknolojia ambayo ilikuwa imetumika na IBC, yani ile forensic. Kwa hivyo basi ripoti hii pia itakuwa inatoa ripoti kuhusiana na hali imekuwa vipi, kwa sababu kulikuwepo na madai kutoka kwa baadhi ya maafisa wa Azimio kwamba wale IBC hawajakubali kutoa ile sava. Kwa hivyo ni ripoti ambayo itakuwa inaashiria masala yote ambayo yameweza kufuatiliwa kuanzia jana. Pia ripoti hiyo itakuwa inajumlisha wale ambao walikuwa wameweza kufungua masanduku 41 ya kupigia kura na kuweza kuhesabu kura ama kuhesabu kila kitu ambacho kiko ndani yake. Alafu pia itakuwa inaonyesha ile ama ujumbe ambao umenakiliwa katika ile fomu 34A. Kulingana na wale maafisa wa mahakama, wanasema kwamba wakati tu ambapo sanduku lenyewe liliweza kufikishwa hapa katika jumba la forodha, waliweza kunakili. Wanasema kwamba watawaambia wale majaji 7 kila kitu, kwamba hile sanduku lenyewe lilifika likiwa katika hali gani, ilikuwa wazi ama ilikuwa imefungwa vizuri. Pia wataweza kuwaeleza wale majaji kwamba ndio tulipofungua ile sanduku tulipata hili na tukapata lile. Alafu pia watakuwa wanaambia wale majaji ni ikiwa hesabu ya kura ambayo iliweza kupatikana ndani ya sanduku ni sawa na ile kura ambayo ilitangazwa katika kituo cha kupigia kura. Na mwishowe pia watakuwa wanaeleza majaji maoni ambayo yalikuwa yametolewa na wale maafisa wa IBC. Kumbuka kwamba hapo jana tuliweza kuona baadhi ya masanduku ya kupigia kura yakiwa yamefunguliwa na inapatikana kwamba fomu 34A haipo ndani, na hivyo basi wale maafisa wa mahakama wanasema kwamba kuna maoni ambayo yamenakiliwa na wale maajenti wa IBC chini kwamba iwapo basi ile fomu haikuwa na stempu ama haikuwa na muhuri ya IBC ni kwa nini, na ikiwa labda fomu 34A kuwa ni kwa sababu gani. Kwa hivyo tunaweza ripoti kwamba tu shughuli hile imeweza kukamilika, na ripoti hiyo itaweza kutoka mwendo wa saa 9, na bila shaka tukipata ripoti hiyo tutawaeleza watazamaji wetu jinsi ripoti yenyewe inavyoashiria. Lakini kwa sasa narejea matangazo haya hapo kwako Nissy.
All right, thank you so much. That's Ben Chumba, court reporter, and also Sarafina Robi, of course, who are bringing us up to speed on the presidential election petition hearing that has been going on since yesterday. Today being day 2, the respondents have presented their responses on behalf of the IEBC chairman, and also in the afternoon, William Ruto is expected to present his response, and of course that's also through his lawyers or their lawyers. That will be coming up in the afternoon at 2 p.m. We will be going back to the Supreme Court. But for now, Education Cabinet Secretary Professor George Magoha has affirmed that the construction of Phase 2 competence-based curriculum classrooms will be realized in time. This as he urged institutions in Nairobi, Bungoma and Kwale counties to pull up their socks and catch up with the rest of the country in readiness to implement the junior secondary school curriculum. Classrooms have been constructed across the country out of the 10,000 classrooms required. He was speaking at Honorable John Njoroge Secondary School in Kasarani Sub-County, Nairobi County, while commissioning a competence-based curriculum class.
Over 20 counties have already completed at 100%. The national average is at 92%. But from the point of view of whether we have succeeded or not, even at this point, we can say we have succeeded. Some few areas like Bungoma, here in Nairobi, and Kwale, which are still lagging behind that. We have a few days to go. One may argue that once you reach 95%, you are as good as you can be, but like I've said, our children are complete human beings, so we must complete classrooms for all of them.
In other stories, approximately 1 million doses of Johnson & Johnson and Pfizer COVID-19 vaccines will expire by the end of September if not administered. And as the government strives to achieve the target of vaccinating 26 million COVID-19 National Task Force Chair Dr. Willis Akwale says the country has witnessed a low uptake of the vaccines since last month. Zainab Said reports.
According to the Ministry of Health, COVID-19 vaccine uptake continues to decrease gradually from 100,000 people daily initially to about 15,000 people every 24 hours. The National Task Force on COVID-19 Chair, Dr. Willis Akwale, attributes the trend to low positivity rates, which currently stands at 1.5%.
In the last 1 week, we've seen an improvement in terms of daily vaccination rate. Like yesterday, about 15,000 people got vaccinated. Obviously, this is much lower than our target.
With the government working towards vaccinating a target population of 27 million Kenyans and the rate of infection is low, Kenyans are being urged to ensure they are fully vaccinated.
In country, we do have over 5 million doses that are not utilized. I think later, either this evening or tomorrow, we should be getting Moderna coming in, about 200,000 doses. And for now, what we are, the doses are there is just to manage the supply chain.
At the end of September, 1 million doses of Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson will expire. And to forestall the anticipated wastage, the Ministry of Health intends to conduct a mass vaccination campaign.
I cannot say for sure. If the campaign is as successful as the one of July, where 1 million people are vaccinated, then we could just do that. In terms of planning, we want to minimize, but we cannot rule out no expiries at all.
I'm here to get my first shot today. I decided to come because I kept pushing it forward. I actually see the importance of having the jab for my own personal protection for my family, and like elderly people that I interact with and all that. Yeah. Today I've actually come because like the opportunity has been brought to me actually. It's not that I've had the opportunity to go for the jab. Yeah. So being in the streets and everything, it's created the opportunity for me to have the jab today.
As of Thursday, August 30th, 2022, a total of 21,124,488 vaccines had been administered across the country. Nairobi County leading with the highest number of fully vaccinated adults at 1,600,406, followed by Kiambu County at 594,948. Tana River has the least number of administered vaccines at 16,614, followed by Isiolo at 17,552. In the last 1 day, 13 people tested positive for COVID-19 from a sample size of 848. No fatalities were recorded during the period, and the death toll stands at 5,674. For Lunchtime News, I'm Zainab Said.
Away from that, the returning officer for Gishugu constituency, who passed away shortly after overseeing the elections, was laid to rest on Wednesday in his Maruroi village home in Buri, Meru County. Geoffrey Gitobu reportedly felt dizzy while driving to Nanyuki and was rushed to hospital, where he was pronounced dead upon arrival on August 22nd. The postmortem revealed that he died from a clot in the pulmonary vein.
A somber mood engulfed residents of Marurui village in Gishungu, Meru County as they joined friends and relatives as the late Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission returning officer Geoffrey Gitobu was laid to rest. Gitobu was eulogized by many as a devoted, loving, caring, and an honest individual, joined IEBC as a returning officer in the year 2010 after exiting his career as a high school teacher.
Gitobu was always a peacemaker who never came across a quarrel or a misunderstanding he didn't want to settle. He always told the line of peace and rarely got angry. He was not a perfect man, but he was perfect for me. My husband was an eternal optimist with a quick and ever-ready smile and an always positive attitude. He always firmly believed that the best was yet to come, and he never lost hope until he breathed is rust.
The burial, which attracted a huge number of mourners, was also attended by IEBC officials who in their tribute stated that it was very unfortunate that at every election in the country, incidences of IEBC officials losing their lives are reported. They called on the relevant agencies to investigate the deaths and bring the perpetrators to book.
Wakati watu wa IEBC wanapotea, alafu munasema kuna uchaguzi, familia zao munakuja munazitekeleza. Nataka nimwambia kwamba kuna Mungu mbinguni. Fikiria watu wa IEBC, kwa sababu kazi ya IEBC ni ngumu na ni hatari hata kushinda kufanya kazi Afghanistan, Somalia ama kule kwingine kote ambapo vita vinapigana. Ama si namna hiyo?
Whenever we are given an opportunity to conduct elections, I think we need to have this debate that can we respect those people who do and conduct elections and allow them to practice the occupation they have chosen.
Gitobu passed away on August 22nd from a clot in the pulmonary vein as revealed by the post-mortem conducted. The late has left behind a widow, Catherine Kagwiria, and 3 children. For Lunchtime News, I'm Opicho Chemtai.
May his soul rest in peace. Moving on, the county government of Baringo is seeking a court order to bury 33 unclaimed bodies lying at the Baringo Referral Hospital for the last 2 years. They say the unclaimed bodies have caused congestion in the morgue, forcing them to seek orders for their disposal.
The medical superintendent at Baringo Referral Hospital, Dr. Gerishon Abahalwa, said that 33 of the unclaimed bodies are those of newborns who died due to birth-related complications. He said the situation has overwhelmed the morgue attendants, affecting their services in the long run.
33 are newborns who we recovered from maternity from various causes of death over the years. So they have laid there unclaimed for more than 2 years. So it is not like a one-off thing. So let that be very clear, yes. But the plans are in place with a small budget that has now been supported. We are going to dispose that very safely, and then our machines shall be able to run very well.
Baringo Governor Benjamin Cheboi said that the other unidentified bodies were brought by police. He also said cultural practices bar locals from touching dead bodies, especially infants.
Poverty or because of other things, they don't have ability to go and give them a decent burial. What they are saying is they are seeking the consent of the relevant authorities to allow them to dispose of those bodies. There is a legislation or a legal way of disposing bodies. We urge the hospital in future to make sure that they hold the loved ones of these people who are left in hospital.
And it is time now for a short break, but more news on the other side of this break. Don't go too far. We'll be back in just a bit.
Yani ina maana nchi ama mji ikiwa na amani, unakuta hata nchi zingine zinawadhamini, zinawafadhili sana, zinawaaminia.
Muislamu wa kisawasawa ni yule ambaye anadumisha amani, anaepukana na maneno ambayo yanaweza kupelekea kuvurugika kwa amani, na vitendo vyake pia huwa vinahusika na kuhifadhi amani.
Hello there. Good boys gone bad. Eric Omondi has evolved from being a comedian to now being the king clout chaser.
How does a gospel artist make money? Jaguar wept again.
As a celeb, as a followers, but it's a time for artists to make bank.
Yes. How is your relationship with Zari, considering that she dates young?
These are accessories.
They do not make... Slap the guy.
Yo, what's up? My name is Ted Josiah.
Oh, mashallah.
You sing about serious issues, it will not trend. If you sing about Abjambosi,
no.
Bahati hata kuwa na machozi.
Willy Paul ndio alikuwa anatoa matozi.
For your beat these boys with stones. Let's all be logic. Yesu ashukangi chini analeta pesa.
Musicians are missing the point.
Do we sip water?
You are watching Pop Culture with Adhiambo with a Y.
Do you have a news story to share with KBC? Get in touch swiftly on email news@kbc.co.ke or call 0723-892-654 or 0734-780-124.
Welcome back. Thank you for staying with Lunchtime News. Now moving on, as Kenyans await the Supreme Court verdict regarding the disputed August 9th presidential election, clerics now want the citizenry to remain peaceful. Led by Federation of Evangelical and Indigenous Christian Churches of Kenya, Secretary General Bishop David Thagana, the church leaders expressed optimism that the Supreme Court will uphold the will of the people by making a fair ruling.
Clerics called on the Supreme Court judges to remain impartial in the ongoing case, saying the apex court should uphold the rule of law while giving the verdict. Federation of Evangelical and Indigenous Christian Churches of Kenya Secretary General Bishop David Thagana, who spoke in Juja, Kiambu County during the conclusion of a 3-day servant leadership training and prayer session, urged Kenyans to accept the ruling of the Supreme Court that will be delivered by September 5th.
We would want that message to come out strongly from the Supreme Court, and if eventually the decision be fair and just, so that the Kenyans can have confidence in our systems of the court.
His sentiments were echoed by Reverend Dr. Karik Akin and Elizabeth Muthoni, who urged Kenyans to uphold peace and unity, terming violence as no solution to challenges facing the country.
Naomba ya kwamba hata wakati tunaongojea uamuzi wa Supreme Court, ile koti ya juu, ya kwamba wananchi tutaendelea kudumisha amani.
We want the best for all people, not just for my group. And so as we begin to serve each other and think of each other, the nation can be stronger than it's ever been.
They further urged elected leaders to focus on uplifting the lives of the downtrodden by prudently using available resources for the socio-economic well-being of all. Beatrice Ketonyangetich, Lunchtime News.
And elsewhere, residents of Malava in Kakamega County have urged the governor-elect Fernandes Barasa to work closely with the residents in order to more effectively deliver on his mandate. They asked Barasa to balance development in all the regions, especially in smaller towns that have been overlooked by various county governments.
Governor mteule, kwamba umechukua nafasi ni pongezi, na ni kusema kwamba kwa niaba ya watu wa Kabarasi tunasema kwamba tutafanya na wewe kazi, kwa sababu kuna wale walikupigia kura na kuna wale hawakukupigia kura, lakini hayo yote utawacha kwa sababu wewe ni kiongozi na watu wote wanaangalia macho kwako ili wapate miradi kulingana na vile ulisema.
Kwa hivyo sisi tunamwambia yule gavana amechaguliwa afanye maendeleo yote kisawasawa. Manake Kabras ndio inatoa ushuru mingi. Tuko na kampuni mbili kubwa za miwa, ya West Kenya na Butali Sugar. Zile lami zinaundwa Huisero, zinaundwa Butere, zinaundwa Mumias. Hiyo pesa inatoka Kabras. Kwa hivyo sisi hatutalala bungeni.
Kabras hatubagui. Kabras hatubagui. Kabras hatubagui.
All right, let's take a look at the day's business. The government has picked 10 counties that are expected to undergo vigorous business reforms to improve the country's business competitive edge. East Africa Community Principal Secretary Dr. KBC Desai says the reform will see an overhaul of the entire licensing regime, expansion of infrastructure, construction of business incubation centers, and a one-stop shop for investors.
Among the targeted 10 counties are Mombasa, Kilifi, Taita Taveta, Tana River, Kisumu, Busia, among others. The reforms are being spearheaded by the Directorate of Business Reforms and Transformation, with an aim of bolstering Kenya's competitiveness as a preferred investment destination.
It's absolutely critical that we address issues of policies, legislations, regulations, and standards. While we've done this very successfully in Nairobi, propelling Kenya to within top 50 in the world, we are hoping that the same applies to counties like Kilifi. Kilifi has been chosen as one of the 10 counties that we'd like to focus on. Within this context, we'd like to see to it that the business ecosystem is facilitative to enterprise creation.
The reforms target various areas of the trade like business legislation and licensing, policy frameworks, tax regimes, trade levies, and incentives for investors. East Africa Community Principal Secretary Dr. KBC Desai has said Kenya is positioning itself to reap from the expanded East African community, where trade is expected to hit more than $300 billion by the year 2025.
The existing composition of 7 partner states makes this a value proposition of approximately $300 billion, and within that context, the growth and potential for Kilifi industry is enormous.
The EAC community is also expected to tap into the African market through the African Continental Free Trade Area, with a combined population of 1.4 billion people. The PS says once the reforms are implemented, they will help generate 160,000 tons of market cargo by 2025 and 230,000 tons by 2035. Speaking in Kilifi County, PS KBC said the government's efforts to improve the road networks, ports and airports will help promote commerce within the East African community. Reporting for Lunchtime News, I am Teresa Mutai.
And elsewhere, Kilifi is slowly emerging as major honey-producing county in Kenya, with many people turning to agriculture. The county has combined beekeeping with conservation efforts, especially along the world-famous Maida Creek. The government, through the National Agricultural and Rural Inclusive Growth Project, is funding various communities to buy modern beehives while sourcing markets for their produce.
In the past, Kilifi residents kept bees in dryland forests, but due to changing weather patterns, which has resulted in dwindling flowers in water, many residents in Kilifi have changed tact, opting to engage in conservation apiculture.
Kuru kwa ufugaji nyuki, kwa sababu mazingira yetu tumehifadhi sana, kwa sababu watu walikuwa hawajui muhimu wa mazingira, wanakata miti ovyo. Lakini tulipoanza kufuga nyuki, tukafundishwa jinsi ya kuhifadhi mazingira, tusikate miti ili nyuki wawe wanapata maua.
Apiculture has taken off in the county as an alternative source of income, with the residents now channeling their efforts towards conserving the environment. Deforestation in Kilifi County has been a major factor that undermined its growth, leaving residents impoverished due to climate change and its effects. The initiative under the National Agricultural and Rural Inclusive Growth Project has seen residents create vegetation cover that can provide and sustain forage for bees, which has seen a turnaround in production, helping to supplement their livelihoods.
Iliweza kufanya kuwe na jangwa kwa sababu ya ukataji wa miti, lakini tangu ulipoanza mradi huu tumeona ukataji wa miti umepungua na miti pia imeweza kupandwa kurudisha ile hadhi ya mazingira katika hii eneo la Matsangoni.
Mazingira yalikuwa si mazuri sana, maana ilikuwa kuna watu wanakatakata hii miti, lakini tulipoanza kuweka hii mizinga, haya watu acha huko kukata na sisi tukapanda miti mingine. Kwa hiyo kufikia hivi mazingira yetu yako sawa.
The program has also seen the conservation of mangrove forests, which are usually in high demand for the construction industry, that also act as a breeding ground for different fish species. Under the National Agricultural and Rural Inclusive Growth Project program, farmers are trained on the importance of conservation efforts at the coast and new beekeeping techniques.
Walipokuja maafisa kutueleza kuhusu kulinda hii mazingira, basi tumekuwa tukishiriki katika mafundisho yao na wakatufundisha kuhusu kuweka ile nasari, na tukaanza kuingia kwa msitu na tukawa kama askari wa mazingira katika msitu huu wa mikoko.
Ndusamo Kami for Lunchtime News.
And on the African continent, Dubai's Emirates has announced plans to resume flights to Lagos after the Central Bank of Nigeria released a portion funds the airline had earned in the country but had not been repatriated. An airline spokesperson said flights to Lagos will resume from the 11th of this month, though it will not resume flights to Abuja this month. Here are the details of this and other stories making headlines across the continent.
Before suspension of flights to Nigeria, Emirates had reduced its flights in Nigeria from 11 to 7 per week. It had earlier indicated it will stop flights from 1st of September to limit further losses and impact on its operation costs. The Nigerian government owes Emirates $85 million it made from ticket sales. Last week, the Central Bank of Nigeria released $265 million to airlines operating in the country to prevent a crisis in the aviation sector. The shortage of the dollar has made it difficult for the bank to settle the debt. British Airways too has reduced its flights over failure to recover funds. Elsewhere, the International Monetary Fund has approved a $1.3 billion loan to Zambia. This will be a 38-month loan program meant to help Zambia restore economic stability and foster higher and more inclusive growth as the country was dealing with years of economic mismanagement and its growth rates were too low to tackle poverty, inequality and malnutrition. As part of the terms of the loan facility, Zambia is required to tackle corruption, eliminate fuel subsidies and make agricultural subsidies more efficient. Finally, the first shipment of grains from Ukraine to Africa since the Russian-Ukraine conflict arrived in Djibouti and has begun unloading. According to the World Food Programme, it took the ship loaded with 23,000 tons of Ukrainian wheat 2 weeks to arrive in the Horn of Africa country. The WFP says after the ship was unloaded at the port in Djibouti, the wheat will be transported to Ethiopia and is expected to feed some 1.53 million people there for a month. The arrival of urgently needed grain came after Ukraine and Russia reached a deal with the United Nations and Turkey last month to open a corridor allowing for food shipments. According to WFP estimates, about 22 million people are experiencing acute hunger in the Horn of Africa region, comprising 8 countries including Djibouti, Ethiopia and Somalia. Reporting for Lunchtime News, I'm Terry Njenga.
And elsewhere, Kakuzi says it has received 10 major avocado orders from China as it prepares to ship its second consignment of the commodity to the Asian country. The company says it plans to export the second consignment in October of this year.
Kakuzi says the first export consignment to China has been sold out with a single fruit retailing at 963 shillings. The farm now says it has run out of fruits in East China and is seeking to replenish the shelves in the market in October with a second consignment. Kakuzi, however, wants farmers to adhere to the stringent phytosanitary conditions placed on Kenyan avocado exports to the Chinese market to reduce cases of interception that may lead to increased inspection of consignments from Kenya. Kakuzi Managing Director Christopher Flowers said the volumes exported to China are quite low compared to the volumes destined for the European market, and there is need to increase exports to China to increase farmers' earnings. In the first half of this year, Kenya exported 132 and 520 kilos of avocado worth 28 million shillings to China, compared to Netherlands export, which earned farmers 2.7 billion shillings. Hong Kong and China are the new markets for fresh avocados, with Kenya exporting 814,000 kilos and 133,000 kilos of avocado worth 162 million shillings and 28 million shillings respectively. In total, Kenya exported 54 million kilos of the fruit globally worth 8 billion shillings. Benson Druba for Lunchtime News.
And overseas now, where a U.S. Catholic nun who was kidnapped by armed men in Burkina Faso in April has been freed. The bishop of the local northeast diocese of Kaya said Sulan Tennyson, aged 83, was taken hostage from a local parish in the middle of the night, leaving behind her glasses and blood pressure medication.
The 83-year-old nun from the Order of the Marionettes of the Holy Cross was taken hostage on the 5th of April in the parish of Yalgo, where she had been serving since 2014. The identity of the nun's kidnappers was not known when she was taken in the middle of the night. Militant groups, some with links to Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State, have taken over large swathes of territory in Burkina Faso and conduct frequent attacks on the army and civilians. To the United States now. Democrat Mary Peltola won the special election for Alaska's only U.S. House seat on Wednesday, besting a field that included Republican Sarah Palin, who was seeking a political comeback in the state where she was once governor. Peltola, who is UPic and turned 14 on Wednesday, will become the first Alaska native to serve in the House and the first woman to hold the seat. She will serve the remaining months of the late Republican U.S. Representative Don Young's term. Young held the seat for 49 years before his death in March. In Asia, a Malaysian court on Thursday sentenced Rosmah Mansor, the wife of former Prime Minister Najib Razak, to a decade in prison for seeking and receiving bribes in exchange for government contracts just days after her husband was jailed for corruption. The former First Lady, seen as a powerful figure behind Najib, has been widely scorned in Malaysia for her extravagant lifestyle and penchant for Hermes Birkin bags. Rosmah had pleaded not guilty to the 3 charges of soliciting and receiving bribes between 2016 and 2017 to help a company secure a $279 million power supply project from Najib's government. Reporting for Lunchtime News, I'm Daniel Mugo.
All right, let's take a look at the day's sports, where the new signing, Erling Haaland, hit a second successive hat-trick as Manchester City crushed Nottingham Forest 6-0 at Etihad Stadium last night. Meanwhile, league leaders Arsenal extended their unbeaten run to 5 games with a 2-1 win over Aston Villa.
Puts it in. Haaland! Well, I'm pretty sure that's it.
Erling Haaland's hat-trick, Julian Alvarez brace and a goal from Joao Cancelo assured Man City all the 3 points after a 6-0 win over Nottingham Forest at Etihad Stadium.
Path. Well, it's a lovely ball from Joao Cancelo. Foden, Stones. Oh, yes.
Meanwhile, league leaders Arsenal extended their perfect start to winning all 5 Premier League games after a 2-1 win over Aston Villa.
Gabriel Jesus on the follow-up. Oh, it's got all the way in.
Tonight, Manchester United travel to